Our first speaker for the afternoon session is the lovely Chris. He's going to come up and share his story about his personal experience of encephalitis. So over to you, Chris. And we're doing this. And it's also quite... Oh, I love it. We've got some walk-on music. I'm very happy.
Those of you of a certain age may recognise that song. Could you hear it okay? Yeah, and the reason, particularly if you're from this part of the world as well, and the reason I wanted to play that song is because of these opening words.
Oh. You want to walk and talk, so I want to give you a mic. Is that okay?
Oh, is that better, everybody? Is that better? So, what happened to you? Whatever happened to me? What became of the people we used to be? Hands up anybody who sometimes feels like that. Okay. My name is Chris Moore, and this is the story of whatever happened to me. And it starts like most stories start. It was just a normal day. It was just like any other day. I'd woken up in the morning. I had a bit of a headache, actually, which I put down to a reaction from having the COVID vaccination the day before. So I still decided to have my usual daily walk. I think on this occasion I was going shopping for some provisions. Can't remember now. But on my way back, something strange happened. I noticed that every time I was walking, every time I took a foot forward, things started to jump. Boom, boom, boom. And I thought, that's a bit strange. What's all that about? But I seemed to feel okay. So I just tried to ignore it and continue. Anyway, just before I got home, I decided to call in and see our neighbour, Barbara. She lives on her own, and she's always thankful for a little bit of company. And she said to me, she said, "Hello, Chris." She said, "Come in, I'll make you a cup of tea." But when we sat down, and she started to talk to me, it's like I wasn't really there. It's like I was observing a discussion between two other people. I felt distant. I felt dazed. Again, I thought, well, that's a bit strange. I must be just a bit tired. The next day, same thing happened again on my walk. Things moving up and down. Boom, boom. I started to feel a bit upset. I got concerned at this stage. And this continued for about 2 or 3 days. And so one afternoon, I started to feel really tired. So I thought, I'm going to go for a lie down. However, after resting for a few minutes, I started to feel really scared. I didn't know why. My body started to ache. And I became very tender. I didn't want to move. I told myself I was just panicking and making myself worse. I closed my eyes and I tried to force myself to sleep. But every time I opened my eyes again, this feeling of dread, it was still with me. And this went on for about an hour. But after about an hour, it seemed to pass. I remember thinking, oh, thank goodness for that. Well, the next couple of days, I seemed to be fine. I was fine the next couple of days. Things had even stopped jumping up and down. And I seemed to be able to lie down and sleep okay. And I forgot about it all then. And I was okay for about a week later. But then the same thing happened again. I started to feel really tired. And I went for a lie down again. And once again, all these horrible feelings started to happen to me. Only this time, it were worse. It were much worse. I was immediately gripped with this sense of, this feeling of terror. I started to panic. And I shouted for my wife. I shouted, Sandra, Sandra. And she came into the room and she said, what's the matter? I said, something's happening to me. Something's happening to me. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. She said, look, just sit up. Sit up. So I did. I don't remember what happened next, but my wife told me that when I looked at her, my eyes just rolled up and I fell backwards onto the bed. I'd had my first seizure. Now, I was only unconscious for a few minutes. And when I woke up, I seemed okay. I seemed okay again. However, my wife, she'd phoned for the ambulance, which arrived promptly. The ambulance man, when he came, he examined me. And everything seemed fine, apart from the fact I had a temperature. And he suggested I go with them to hospital. And I was reluctant to go, actually, as I seemed to feel okay. I said, look, I'm okay now. I don't want to go. But both him and my wife, they felt it would be the best thing for me to do. So I declined their offer of a wheelchair to the ambulance because I was determined to show them I was fine. And I walked outside and I walked into the ambulance and I went inside and I sat down on the chair inside. But they actually said to me, look, Mr. Moore, Chris, can you lie down, please? Lie down on this bed. And I said, well, I don't want to. I'm okay sitting here. He said, no, lie down, please. So I did. And I immediately told them it was all starting to happen again. I could feel it all happening again. And I asked for somebody to hold my hand. And that's the last thing I remember for over 2 days. Apparently, I had 2 further seizures in the ambulance, and I didn't regain consciousness. And when I did, I was in the intensive care unit. I had a ventilator down my throat, controlling my breathing. I had a catheter in my arm where they were pumping drugs, a feeding tube up my nose, and a catheter. And I was all wired up. I have to say, at this point, that my time in hospital was nothing short of a horror story. And I don't intend to go through this today. Suffice to say, I was misdiagnosed twice. I was misdiagnosed twice before eventually being treated for viral encephalitis on day 10 of my admission. That's day 10. Anyway, I spent 5 weeks in hospital, after which I was discharged. And the only advice I got from the consultant was to go home and get plenty of rest and to stay on the anti-seizure medication for the rest of my life. And that was it. That was it. That's all they said to me. So, although it was an unbelievable relief for me to finally get out of hospital, to be finally out of that madhouse and to be home, I was far from right. And I didn't feel well at all. Every day became a challenge. I had persistent, ongoing headspace stuff. My head was constantly muzzy and dizzy. I could actually feel my thoughts. I could feel them speeding around my head 1,000 miles an hour. I felt so strange. I felt so different. The world had become a very odd and difficult place for me. I couldn't seem to explain it to anybody. No one seemed to understand what I was trying to say. I could see it in their eyes. They didn't understand. But how could they? How could they? It was like I'd been transported to an alien planet where everything looked and seemed the same. But nothing was the same. Something was wrong. It was like I was living in a sinister, scary dream. At night, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep well at all. I'd go downstairs at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd just pace backwards and forwards in the kitchen for hours until the morning came, just trying to resist this really strong urge to open the front door, run down the road, and hide somewhere. And I never knew where. And I never knew why. I became irritable with a very, very short fuse. Particularly with my wife. Accusing her of stuff. And shouting at her. My wonderful, wonderful wife. Most days would be the same. I'd wake up feeling really, really unwell with a heavy, muzzy head. Fatigue was particularly debilitating. In the first 6 months, I'd often spend 20 hours a day in bed, totally wiped out. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't read. I couldn't do anything which needed any type of focus or concentration. I couldn't hold a conversation together for 10 minutes, for longer than 10 minutes, without triggering all the headspace stuff. And then I'd go into panic mode. I couldn't enjoy food. Everything tasted the same, but it wasn't the same. Food I'd enjoyed in the past, I couldn't enjoy it anymore. I couldn't explain why. I never knew why. I also found it. My overall mood was one of constant depression and persistent crying. I'm still crying. Oh, I was crying all the time and I just wanted to run away somewhere. Now, we both knew this strange behaviour, this strange person, it wasn't me. And so we gave him a name. We called him Christopher Strange. I also found it difficult to leave the house on my own. And even when we went anywhere together, more often than not, we'd have to turn back, as I'd start to panic, which in turn would trigger Christopher Strange, and all these symptoms would start again. It was horrible. It was horrible. I would then start to panic. I'd panic that the encephalitis had returned. And I'd been ringing the emergency doctor all times of the day. My wife would end up driving me to a doctor's surgery miles away in the middle of the night. And the doctor would invariably just examine me. And he'd prescribe some sort of medication just to calm me down and to help me sleep. And this all went on for about 5 or 6 months. Life had become intolerable for both of us. So, in desperation, My wife called the Encephalitis Society and she spoke with John. Where are you, John? Top man. I spoke to John and she asked him if he knew someone I could speak with, someone who had an in-depth understanding of encephalitis and how to treat and cope with it. Ideally, a neurologist. Thankfully, he did. And he put us in touch with a consultant whose main focus of expertise was encephalitis. But he was based in London. We live near Leeds. And so we couldn't see him in the NHS. And so we arranged to see him privately. And in this very first meeting, he immediately recognised and explained to me many of my symptoms. Just speaking with someone who knew and appreciated my issues was a massive relief. It's massive. He assessed my condition and suggested changes to my medication. At last, here was someone I could have confidence in after being all but abandoned by the NHS. One thing he did find surprising was the fact that my memory hadn't really been affected. He also stated that after studying my scans, he noted that the swelling was confined to just one side of my brain, which he said was unusual. And it was the non-dominant side of my brain. This also explained why most of my issues probably been more emotional as opposed to physical and emotional. Also at this stage, it would be remiss of me not to mention the encephalitis volunteer who spent a lot of time supporting me. Initially on Zoom, but mainly by email and WhatsApp. That was another John. His help was immense, and I'll always be grateful for his support. It was John who encouraged me to write my feelings down and also to follow my progress. What's more, he suggested do this in the form of a poem. A poem that's now legendary. I was going to read it out today, but it would take too long. So maybe something for another time. Looking back, I can constantly say that the first 12 months were hard. They were really hard. Normal life was suspended. It was only after 18 months I noticed small improvements, which enabled me to try and find other outlets to distract myself and help me focus my attention on other more positive activities, which I was constantly being encouraged to do. Things such as meditation. It's massive, it's meditation. Meeting friends again. I didn't want to go meet any friends, but I did. Learning a new instrument. For me, that was the ukulele. And joining local committees. Each one of these helped me in so many different ways. But the biggest help by far was the support and the love of my wonderful, wonderful wife. We used to play a song together called Lean on Me by Bill Withers. And we'd often embrace and sway to it together in the kitchen. And I'd cry. I can now say after 3 years that many of the symptoms have diminished. Symptoms such as fatigue, headspace, all that headspace stuff, and detachment. However, some do remain. I do suffer a lot of low mood. I call it low mood. I don't call it depression. Although, who knows when one becomes the other. Excuse me. But I managed the low mood best I can through all the activities I've mentioned, which are a massive, massive help to me. Smells, even now, strong smells can have an effect on me. Just random smells. Old church hall, a newly cut grass, someone's perfume. They can cause strange waves of emotion to flow through my body. Concentration is still an issue for me. I find it difficult to read books as I lose interest quickly. Medication. Even though the doctors were happy for me to stay on the anti-seizure drugs forever, I'd had no further seizures since leaving hospital. And so I decided, with the doctor's reluctant consent, to wean myself off the drugs. I found this very hard and experienced significant withdrawal symptoms. So I had to do it in phases over 18 months. It wasn't a pleasant experience, and I needed to be determined, but I did manage it. So that brings me back to today. Where am I today? Overall, after 3.5 years, I could say I'm a good 85% back, and hopefully still improving. It's been a long and arduous journey of ups and downs. A bit like the stock market. That's what I always compare it to, where it goes up, down, up. But the overall trend is up, which is the most important thing. But as the sun goes, the road is long, with many a winding turn. And so finally, I'd like to wish you all Godspeed on your individual journey. And may the road rise for you. Thank you.
The road is long with a many winding turn that leads us to who knows where, who knows where. But I'm
Well, that was amazing, so brutally honest and so full of hope as well. Thank you so much for that. Has anybody in the room got any comments or observations that they would like to make? Any questions? I think you've got everyone in tears. So that was great. In terms of what do you think, other than your lovely wife, who clearly has been in immense support to you, what do you think was the one other thing that's helped you kind of get to where you are now?
I mentioned a few things actually, didn't I? And it's not just one thing. I think there's a number of things. One of the biggest things I've tried, and I do it to this day, is meditation. What I did, I actually found a local Buddhist centre which teach meditation, and I still go there now, every now and again. But every morning, what I try and do, as my wife goes for a shower for 10, 15 minutes, I'll sit up in bed and I'll meditate, and it prepares me for the day. I would really recommend that. It was a big help. But also the other things like joining committees, learning a new instrument, and they always say that, learning an instrument. All these things help me in their own way. So it was a number of things rather than just one. The biggest one you mentioned.
I don't know which mic you want me to use. Like, whichever, you'll pick it up. In terms of what you're hoping for the next kind of few years, what's your kind of big hope for the next few years?
So I still haven't met all the people that keep in touch with me, all my friends. I find that difficult. I find they'll look at me and they'll say, "Oh, look at him. He's not the same guy I used to be, him, is he?" But I must force myself to see these people. They've been great support for me, and they keep in touch. So I need to work harder at that one, I think. Did that answer the question? All right.
Absolutely. Fabulous. Okay, well, thank you so much for that amazing talk, and I will let you depart from the stage, and we'll do our clapping.